Hello everyone, and welcome to the Astro Consciousness channel. I'm Millie, and I am here to give you your forecast for the first week of September, September 1st through the 7th, 2025. In this channel, we talk about the astrological energy of the week ahead and how you can integrate it into your personal and spiritual growth. So, I cannot believe that we are already in September. It's been an interesting year where so much has happened. It's been a year where a lot of things have ended. There has been a turning point, a significant turning point in a lot of things. And we can see that worldwide, and we can also see it in our lives and within ourselves. And September is one of those months that will really begin the final sweep, the final cleaning up of what 2025 is really about. Remember, 2025 is a year of endings. When you add 2025, you get the number nine, which is a number of finalization. It's a number that comes right before a renewal. And so September, we're going to see how we really cannot take with us anything from the old world into the new world. So this isn't just a September thing. I think it's a rest of 2025 thing, the final purging, the final cleaning, the final organization, whether very literal and physical for some people, or energetically. We're going to see it, but it begins in September, and it begins pretty strongly this first week of September. I don't know about you all, but this last week of August that we're leaving behind, I felt like I was hit by a Mack truck. I mean, I usually thrive when I have busy weeks with a lot of calls because I love my work and I love connecting with clients and people and talking about these things. But this last week of August, which was technically the beginning of eclipse season, I was wiped out. I felt so exhausted, so tired, and I thought, wow, this eclipse season is really coming in strong. So when I looked at the aspects of the first week of September, I thought to myself, okay, so we got to make sure that we are sleeping as well as possible, that we are hydrating as much as possible, that we are grounding as much as possible, because not only do we have significant retrogrades happening, but Mercury is very active all week long. Okay, so let's get started. Monday, September 1st, we have Saturn retrograde re-entering the sign of Pisces and remaining there till November 28th. Saturn is going to go backwards in the sign of Pisces, and it's going to go all the way back to 25 degrees Pisces. What does that mean? That a lot of the themes, issues, conversations that we were touching on, I would say the first 3, 4 months of 2025, we're going to be reviewing them in some way, shape, or form. But here's the thing. We have to remember that our journey, our healing journey, our spiritual journey is never linear. It's always in a spiral. So, even though some of the themes that we were working through the first 3 to 4 months of the year, which are around the structure of our lives, boundaries in our lives with other people, the final tightening of loose ends when it comes to the way that we connect with the foundation of our lives, right? Anything that has to do with the structure of our lives, how we're providing for ourselves, how we are devoted to certain things in our lives, the responsibilities in our lives, they're going to be touched on again. And they're going to be significantly highlighted the month of September to a point where we can no longer escape the reality of what we're being called to step into. And we're going to have the rest of the year to work through it. I don't know if you guys remember this, but it was around that time, it was around March or April, and I think that I was doing that eclipse season's forecast where I said, there are things being brought to the forefront of your awareness. You don't have to fix these things overnight right now. You have 6 months, but come the next eclipse season, which is now September 2025, you will have to want to be in a better place with these things. You will be in some way, shape, or form be forced in a very strict Saturnian yet loving kind of way to take care of any responsibilities that you may have been neglecting. Okay? Because remember, the cosmos is always being generous. The cosmos is always being kind and loving to us. And it's saying, get your foundations in your life right. Get your boundaries right. You don't want to go into this new world, into 2026, which is a year of a new beginning, with the same patterns, with the same habits, with the same unclear boundaries in relationships. You deserve to experience a life that you want to experience. And so Saturn moving back into the sign of Pisces is about that. It's about, where are we in our growth journey, in our spiritual journey? Remember, it's a spiral. So we have gained a ton of wisdom from March 2025 to now September 2025. We've gained a ton of wisdom. There's no doubt about it. So whatever is presenting itself to you with the Saturn retrograde in Pisces between now and late November, really, I would say even through the end of 2025, how are you, instead of being the victim, instead of trying to control something that's out of your control, how are you surrendering into what you know you need to do at this moment in time? How are you leaving behind the lower expression of Pisces Virgo energy, which is the victimhood mentality, the martyrdom, right? Step into your role of leadership, which is what Saturn and Aries has been inviting you to do all along. You have an opportunity from now till the end of the year to tie up loose ends, to step into a much more soul devoted role into your life, whether it's your relationship or your work or yourself or your spiritual journey or all of it. But the calling is back to a much more devoted, genuine, honest connection between yourself and the life that you're creating. Okay. On Tuesday, September 2nd, Mercury enters the sign of Virgo and remains there till September 18th. I personally love this because the one way that we can use a Mercury in the sign of Virgo, first off, Mercury is in one of its home signs, so any planet does really well in its home sign. We're going to be in the middle of eclipse season all of September. So eclipse seasons can be disorienting. Eclipse seasons can be like, all of the stuff is coming to the forefront of my awareness. I feel like I have to change my entire life overnight. But here's the thing. Mercury in Virgo is the invitation to be involved in your day to day in an organized way, in a way that the things that you're doing are connected to some kind of outcome, even if the outcome is just to get through the day. Okay. It's a very grounding energy, Mercury in Virgo. The lower expression of it, which can happen, especially because we're in eclipse season, but if you're mindful of it, you can set the intention with the knowledge that you now have, that I'm giving you, and say, okay, when I start to spiral out of control and not in the best way, how am I not grounded? What brings me a sense of focus? What brings me a sense of purpose? Okay, the lower expression of a Mercury in Virgo can be obsessing over things, thinking about the past, completely getting lost in thought and having the experience of analysis paralysis, right? The wonderful thing about being human is that we have free will, and that no matter how much it feels that our thoughts may take over, we can always find a moment of grounding and saying, wait a minute, how am I choosing to experience this at this moment in time? What needs my attention right now? What is calling for some type of organization, some type of understanding, whether it's a conversation with myself or another, or simply, how can I ground at this moment in time? How can I take a couple of breaths and just be in the present moment? Mercury in Virgo is very much inclined to doing in order to expel that energy that may build up. Organize yourself. What's on your calendar? Make sure that whatever's on your calendar you actually want to do, right? Do not overbook yourself, oversaturate your calendar. Do not just give yourself to do things because then, especially during eclipse season, it can feel very exhausting. And that's not the point. Is what do I really want to do? What really deserves my time, energy, and attention? Some of you out there have very busy lives, right? In different ways. What's actually important in your life? And here's the thing, during eclipse season, a lot of things for a lot of people tend to come up, and a lot of their nonsense tends to come up too, right? So, there is going to be a lot of question. Virgo energy is this energy of, I'm not putting up with your nonsense. Mercury in Virgo is going to be the invitation to say, do I want to deal with this person's nonsense? Do I want to deal with something that is not mine to carry, that is not my responsibility? Remember, eclipse season, Virgo Pisces, we're not the savior, we're not the martyr. We're leaving that behind in the old world, and we're very lovingly giving others their stuff back to them so that they can fulfill their spiritual assignment and their spiritual journey in this lifetime. Okay. All right. Wednesday, September 3rd, we have that Mercury and Virgo create a square to Uranus and Gemini. Okay, so this is where things can get a little frazzled, can feel like a little too much, can feel like our thoughts are spinning and we cannot find grounding. Free will. How are you giving those moments to yourself? So, one of the simplest exercises that I give coaching clients, because especially if they have really, really busy days, right, is one hand on the chest, one hand on the solar plexus or the belly, and count 10 deep breaths. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. Slowly, 10 of them, close your eyes and bring yourself back into your body, right? Feel your body landing on itself, and that is enough for you to come back to presence, for you to come back to yourself. Some clients say that they have to do that multiple times throughout the day, depending on the astrological climate we may be under at any given time. I find that I too have to do that. Sometimes just once is enough. Sometimes it's, once an hour, right? Especially if I have really busy days, or I just find myself needing to do that. What I would advise is if you can ground barefoot on grass, if you can do yoga, if you can do meditations. For those of you who will purchase the eclipse guides, by the way, available Monday, September 1st, you will have guided meditations to bring you back to your center, to yourself. Look, the point of Mercury square Uranus is to open your mind up, to break up the patterns. So, Uranus and Gemini is here to liberate us from stubborn thoughts, from stubborn belief systems, from stubborn stories that we have been carrying from the old world that we're no longer meant to carry into the new world. And so, if we can just surrender to the process without trying to control, without trying to understand it all right now, all at once, it's going to be a much more easeful experience. And this is where the breathing, the grounding, the yoga, the meditation will help, because instead of trying to control it, you're going to allow for the downloads to happen. And that's the point. Eclipse seasons are a time of amazing downloads, right? Downloads that do push up against our egoic need for things to be a certain way, and Also, it's just our soul speaking to us and saying, not that way, my love. It's time for us to continue in the path that we know is in our soul's assignment and journey. Okay. So be very mindful of that because even though that aspect perfects on Wednesday, it's an aspect that we're going to feel pretty much all week long, especially because we're headed towards a lunar eclipse in the sign of Pisces, which I'll get to in a second. And so everything is like rising and rising and rising. So there's a lot of energy in the air, okay? Thursday, September 4th, we have Mars in Libra at 18 degrees, square Jupiter in Cancer at 18 degrees. So this is this is an interesting aspect. On the one hand, right? Mars in Libra wants to find the equilibrium in things. It wants to find the harmony in things. Okay, this is kind of like saying, okay, you take care of that, I'll take care of this. We divide and conquer. It's great for like if you're moving for a project, you're good at this, I'm good at that. Let's take action in this way. And we're going to see expansion, right? Jupiter in Cancer when we each take care of our part. I think that because we are in eclipse season, this particular aspect of Mars square Jupiter can actually be very beneficial for relationships, whether romantic or professional, because it is that a little bit of that divide and conquer, right? Now, when it comes to personal relationships, this is about taking personal responsibility. And there being healing, Jupiter in Cancer, when each person takes personal responsibility for their part. One of the lower expressions of Mars in Libra is that in sometimes in its inability to find that balance, because Mars doesn't always do well in the sign of Libra, it can go to one extreme or the other, go nowhere very quickly because it can't find that balance. We have to move slowly. Mars in Libra is a wonderful sun, is a wonderful energy really to move slowly with, one step at a time. Let me really think things through, right? And let me just land on what feels the most honest for me at this moment in time. So, if this happens to manifest for you in a partnership, in a romantic relationship, take a breather. Take a breather because we have Mercury doing a lot of things. We can feel flustered, we can feel flooded, and then having a connection between Mars and Jupiter like this can make people very impulsive, very touchy, right? How we want to take advantage of this energy is by slowing down. What is this moment showing me right now? Right? There is power in the pause between the stimulus and the reaction, right? If this has more to do with you, again, be mindful of where you might feel like, why am I so anxious? Why do I feel like I want to move really, really fast, but I have nowhere to go? The call is within, right? And ground yourself in the mundane, truly. What really deserves my time, energy, and effort right now? Have I taken care of the responsibilities that I know that I need to take care of, or am I avoiding them? And if so, why? Right? But if this is just with you, this is an invitation to definitely move your body, to definitely do something that gets all of this excess, perhaps a little bit even wiry energy out of your body, out into the world, so that you have a greater sense of calm and clarity within you. Okay. Friday, September 5th, Uranus begins to retrograde. And Uranus retrogrades through February 4th, 2026, and it retrogrades all the way back to 27 degrees Taurus. Okay, so with Uranus retrograde, Uranus is going to retrograde in Gemini. In our lifetime, we have never, ever, ever experienced that. So I understand that we have experienced a Uranus in Gemini, a Uranus retrograde in Gemini many, many, many years ago, but not in this lifetime. And considering the astrological climate, it's a very different astrological climate than we've ever experienced in history. So, how might we experience a Uranus retrograde in Gemini? I don't know that anyone can really say that with any kind of certainty, especially under the astrological climate that we're living in right now. So, pay attention to how that feels to you. Here's what I will say. I think that Uranus retrograde in Gemini is really going to give us the opportunity, the same way that Saturn moving back into Pisces is giving us the opportunity to tie up loose ends when it comes to the way that we're thinking, when it comes to the information that we're consuming, who we're consuming it from, what platform we're consuming it from. And perhaps between now and February of 2026, people being like, I no longer like that person's message. It doesn't resonate with me anymore. I no longer want to be on multiple social media platforms. I just want to be on one. Um, I no longer want to follow anyone, right? Remember, Uranus and Gemini is a bit of an abrupt energy. Between July and September, Uranus has been in the sign of Gemini showing us how can I think differently? How can I keep an open mind? What stories keep me stuck? What is my mindset, right? Whose message do I truly resonate with? So I imagine that now that it's going retrograde, a lot of those things are really going to land. And it's going to be interesting from a much more collective perspective how that's going to change the outlook of how people consume information, content, social media platforms. That's going to be really, really fascinating because I think that if there's anything that Uranus and Gemini has shown us that I've noticed across the board is people feeling, okay, this is too much. This is too much. I'm tired of listening to all of these experts tell me what to do. One expert says one thing, one expert says another thing, and then I don't know what to do because too many talking heads, too many talking heads. And so I love that because the calling is back to the self. The calling is back to the self. You are the oracle. You are the carrier of your wisdom. So when you slow down enough to remember that, you can slow down enough to listen to that within yourself. All right. So the weekend of September 6th and September 7th is really filled with the energy of the first eclipse of the season, which is the lunar eclipse in Pisces at 15 degrees Pisces. So remember, the entire week builds up to that lunar eclipse. A lunar eclipse is a full moon eclipse in the sign of Pisces, significant endings. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. Here's what I think that eclipse is going to represent. If you have had endings happen throughout the month of August, that eclipse is really going to be the final emotional clearing. The final emotional clearing of grief, of finally like surrendering to the lessons that that brought you. I think you're really going to land on your soul's knowing, on your soul's message, and saying, it is what it is, and it was what it was, and I sent it off with so much love. I think it's going to be very emotional for a lot of people, actually, because with Mercury being so active all week long, having a lunar eclipse at the end of the week can just feel like, I'm tired and I want to surrender to this moment. I want to check in with how I feel, what I really think, how's my heart, and maybe I just need, some chicken soup for the soul kind of thing right now, right? Obviously, for those of you who purchased the Eclipse Guide, There's a deep dive into this lunar eclipse. There's a deep dive into the solar eclipse in Virgo. There's a deep dive into the Libra equinox. You will have a workbook and you will have guided meditations. So I strongly, strongly suggest and invite you to gift yourself the eclipse guide, because this eclipse season is so important that lays out the groundwork for the rest of the year, that is really giving us an opportunity to start anew for 2026. Okay. So much love to you all. As always, may this be of service. I will talk to you next week. Take care.